For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction, and energy cannot be created nor destroyed, only transformed. Newton's third law of motion and the first law of thermodynamics. These two types of physics-based phenomena are rules that our universe abides by. They have helped many humans understand the physics of our world more than we can ever imagine. But I would like to posit that the rules of these laws don't only apply to the physical plane of our existence, but the metaphysical as well. Because human sentience is a force that is the penultimate example of both of these laws. Our choices do not just carry weight in the physical plane when we act, but they send ripple cascading effects throughout all of the metaphysical world when we choose to do nothing. So let us take a moment and analyze how we can rationally be self-interested while maintaining our personal responsibility across every pillar of our lives. Welcome to The Legend Speaks. Hey yo, what is good, my legendary beasts? It is your boy LilSauceLegend back at it again with these videos. What we will be discussing today is chapter 2 of my philosophy, Sapiocentrism, Sentience Contextualized. In the previous episode, we discussed the mind's structure and established the understanding that the mind is comprised of 3 key pillars: the pillar of empathy, the pillar of logic, and the pillar of instinct. And we established the understanding that sentience is derived when all of these pillars communicate in tandem. However, instabilities and personality flaws can arise when too much attention is focused on one of the pillars, and the others are ignored. To put it in layman's terms, focusing too much on the pillar of logic can make you a dick. Focusing too much on the pillar of emotion can make you volatile. And relying too heavily on the pillar of instinct can make you an animal. However, quantifying what the mind is comprised of does nothing to help us keep our minds in check. Rather, we should use them as a perpetual guide, making sure that the decisions that we make aren't detrimental to a majority of people. Because while yes, I do believe that the majority of humans are selfish, that comes with the context of rational self-interest, which is a tenet of maintaining the personal responsibility. So this video is going to use the pillars of the mind to explain the 2 concepts I just introduced: rational self-interest and personal responsibility. So first, let's talk about rational self-interest. Rational self-interest is derived from the concept that every human on the planet is going to do actions that are going to benefit them the most. That is basic biology. It's basic animalistic impulse. You do something with the expect of a reward, whether that be a physical or metaphysical reward. You can do something not because you get something out of it in the physical sense, but you can do something because you get something out of it in the emotional sense. You get a feeling of satisfaction when you do something nice, so you do something nice more often. So technically, donating to charity or doing something nice for your significant other is technically a selfish act because it's something that you're doing to get a positive emotion out of it. If you do something and you don't get anything out of it, you're not gonna do it again, not because you're a selfish, evil person, but because it's just how our brains are wired. That's how every living creature's brain is wired, which tends to lend itself to addiction problems, and that's why we actually have issues with dopamine regulation, but that's a conversation for another time. In layman's terms, self-interest is doing something with the expectation of getting a positive result for yourself out of it. Now, just like everything else in life, this can be rife with pitfalls that people can fall into if they are not careful. Just because something gives you a positive outcome doesn't mean that there's not a cascading effect of negativity going down, and it may be enforced by our action or inaction. To put it into real-world terms and see what happens when people rely too much on self-interest, let's look at a real-world hypothetical scenario. Let's take a theoretical politician who is boasted as being tough on crime and pro-safety. Person A's perspective is that they are trying to keep them safe and looking out for their best interest. But Person B's perspective is that this individual is extremely racist and bigoted. Now, Person A might look at this opinion and think that Person B is just whining for no reason. But let's zoom out and look at this problem with the sapiocentric mindset. What Person A is not recognizing is that these crimes are happening in predominantly Black and Hispanic neighborhoods. Some people will notice this trend and say, oh, well, these people are just more inherently violent, which is a gross overassumption and violates the second pillar, but we're going to get into that later on. What you should be asking, instead of why are these people committing a disproportionate amount of crime, is instead, why are these individuals lumped in where all the crime happens in the first place? People usually migrate to new areas. Why can't they migrate to new areas? Then you'll start to learn more about history. Then you'll start to learn more about redlining and why a lot of the things that this politician says may sound good on the surface, but has prejudice undertones to the people that are within these communities. Person A doesn't see color. Racist politician sees color and fucks with people of color. But Person A sees this and doesn't think that they're being racist. They just think that they're being harsh on crime. So the sapiocentric mindset is balancing our actions to make sure that we are not, quote unquote, shitting on the living room floor of the place that we have to coexist in. So most major choices must be run through the strict diagnostic process of the 3 pillars of sentience. The pillar of instinct. Does this action or law block people's access to the basic essentials of life, like housing, food, healthcare, or education? If no, then move on to question 2. If yes, then it cannot stand. The pillar of empathy. Does this action or law violate someone's autonomy or ability to self-expression? If yes, then it cannot stand. If no, then move on to step 3. And finally, the pillar of logic. Is this action/law based in objective, verifiable data, or is it based in the far extremes of logic or empathy? If you are unsure, run through it again. By running this through our personal auditing system, we take responsibility for the ripple effects that our choices send out into the universe and into our society. For you are not just responsible when you choose to act, you are also responsible when you choose to do nothing. Sentience is a force that changes the landscape merely by its presence. So we must do our best to maintain the collective responsibility and initiate a balance between ourselves and our pillars of sentience. Make sure that the decisions you make are based in objective truths. Make sure that the laws you fight for are based in empathetic realms of understanding. And making sure that no one is blocking access to the key necessities of life. For making sure that we are within balance in ourselves passively maintains the collective responsibility. And said collective responsibility is the foundation of the social contract that we all abide by living in a civilized society. Listen for new information, learn from your mistakes, and be open to new ideas. That is how we carve a path forward to a new tomorrow. Thank you for listening, and stay saucy.